slightly early. I'm sure we're all here, aren't we? Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here this afternoon. And as you can see from the material around me, today we're announcing critical defence capability decisions, which are investments in our national security, and therefore investments in New Zealand's economic prosperity. 4 months ago, I stood here with the Prime Minister and released the government's defence capability plan. We outlined a multi-billion-dollar plan for a modern New Zealand Defence Force that pulls its weight internationally and domestically. A plan to equip the NZDF to be increasingly combat capable, interoperable with our partners, able to act as a force multiplier with Australia, and make the most of innovations which require us to be more effective. The $2.7 billion of investment decisions Minister Peters and I are announcing today are the first of the priority projects outlined in the DCP, and they put us firmly on the path to achieving that plan. As a maritime nation, this government is prioritising naval capability that is interoperable and can support New Zealand's defence, security and trade objectives in the maritime environment. I'm therefore delighted to today announce Cabinet has chosen the MH-60R Seahawk as our preferred option to replace the ailing Sea Sprite maritime helicopter fleet. And this decision supports our objective of having a more combat capable and integrated ANZAC force. This is a helicopter used by Australia, the US and 7 other countries. A helicopter that would come equipped with essential weapons systems, Mark 54 torpedoes and Hellfire missiles, all of which will increase the lethality and defensive capability of New Zealand's naval fleet. More than $2 billion has been budgeted for the purchase, and we will begin formal discussions to procure the helicopters through the US Foreign Military Sales Program shortly, with a view to Cabinet considering the final business case next year. I'm also pleased to announce we will replace the ageing Boeing 757 fleet with 2 new extra long range Airbus A321 aircraft using a cost-effective lease-to-buy arrangement. These are commercial off-the-shelf aircraft, so will be fitted out and ready to operate soon after arrival in early 2028. This is a decision that reflects the need for New Zealand to have a reliable aircraft to deploy our personnel, deliver military equipment and humanitarian aid, support the evacuation of civilians, and transport government trade and diplomatic delegations quickly over long distances and often at short notice. And it's a decision that means we will finally have aircraft that can return safely from Antarctica if they are unable to land due to conditions on the ice. These investments matter not just to our military, but to every New Zealander. They matter because we are a small island nation whose economic well-being relies on the freedom to travel and to trade, and as defence focuses turn to the through life support, maintenance and infrastructure for these capabilities, there will be many opportunities for New Zealand businesses to support defence and help grow our economy. Opportunities to contribute in areas such as training, maintenance and construction to support the new fleets, and in the vertical takeoff and landing uncrewed systems required to complement the helicopters. I'm proud to be standing here today to provide real examples of this government's commitment to doubling our defence spending in the next 8 years, because these are once-in-a-generation investments which are vital down payments on our future security and our prosperity. In a world where tensions are rising, distance no longer provides New Zealand the protection it once did. And defence is not something that can be mothballed until you need it. We need a force that is ready and equipped to do whatever is asked of it today, tomorrow and beyond, and to ensure we can deploy, deter, defend and respond to protect New Zealanders and our way of life. Over to you, Mr. Peters.
Well, thank you, Minister, for the invitation to join you for these announcements. We support your comments and the investment decisions that have been made. The intersection between New Zealand's defence and foreign policy has always been important, but our current circumstances mean we must work more closely than ever. We face the most challenging strategic circumstances in New Zealand's modern history, and certainly the worst that anyone today working in politics or foreign affairs can remember. Interests that New Zealand has long sought to advance are under serious pressure. Assumptions that have been underpinned or have underpinned our policy settings for generations are being upended. While not without opportunity, this is a less predictable world for small states such as ours to navigate. In this environment, we must remain grounded in realism. We must deal with the world as it is, not as we or some would wish it to be. Diplomacy is more important now than it's ever been. We need strong partnerships with our regional and international friends to protect our interests and values. But diplomacy alone is not enough. We must harness all tools of statecraft to ensure our security and prosperity going forward. New Zealand needs a defence force that can defend New Zealand and our interests and values. This means not only being able to respond to a crisis, but also contributing to maintaining stability in our region, supporting our Pacific partners, contributing to upholding the international rules-based order, and deterring potential threats. We need a defence force that is better integrated with our ally Australia and more interoperable with partners who share our security interests. We rely on our friends and partners to help make us more secure, and they rely on us for support. New Zealand must continue to step up and, working alongside others, navigate disruption and act to advance and defend our interests and our values. The replacement of our maritime helicopters in Boeing 757s demonstrate New Zealand's commitment to restoring the NZDF to a position where it can make a meaningful contribution to New Zealand's security and prosperity. The Seahawks will increase our frigate surveillance range and support NZDF's humanitarian assistance and disaster relief capabilities so we are able to respond quickly to an emergency in New Zealand or the Pacific. Put simply, they will significantly enhance NZDF's awareness of and ability to respond to threats in our region so we can strengthen regional security. These helicopters will be able to operate seamlessly with Australia, so together we strengthen security and prosperity in our region. As Minister Collins said, the Airbus 321 aircraft will support New Zealand's ability to provide a rapid response to emergency situations in the Pacific and around the globe, including where commercial airlines cannot operate. The aircraft will also ensure we can effectively transport NZDF to deployments around the globe, help sustain New Zealand's presence in Antarctica, and support our diplomatic and trade missions. It is essential that New Zealand prepares for challenges that our country and region face now and will face into the future, using all the tools available to us. Today's announcement puts us on the right path to respond to these challenges. Thank you, Minister.
Opting for the Airbus and purchasing that going forward, how much of that is a vote of no confidence in the Boeing 757s?
No, it's a point of reality. The Boeings were purchased, from memory, in 2003 under the Helen Clark government. They were then 10 years old. They're now about 33 years old. And we have to be realistic about it. They've been giving incredible service, backed up by incredible maintenance. But there comes a time when even the most amazing classic aircraft needs to be allowed to go to aircraft heaven.
The aircraft has broken down quite a few times during prime ministerial trips. How embarrassing has that been for New Zealand over the years?
Well, I don't think so at all. In fact, I think that the vast majority of its flights have been without any problem whatsoever, and the aircraft are not there solely for those trips, although it is obviously an important part of their work. Most of their work is actually taking our troops to various places. But you know, what this does, this long-range aircraft that we're getting, that means that when our people go to Antarctic to collect somebody or drop people off, we don't have to worry that they're going past that point of no return, which we have at the moment. So this will mean that they can get there. If there's a major problem with landing, they can get back to, say, Christchurch or Otago or Dunedin, but they're not stuck in a problem with nowhere to go, which is where we are at the moment.
What is the range of these? What's the range of the new A320?
I think I should ask a pilot that one. Off you come, CDF.
It's got far more significant range than the current 757, with typical payloads and numbers of people and equipment on board. You can get about 5,000 miles out of it, and that's about 30% higher than the typical Airbus 320s or 321s you'd see flying around New Zealand, and significantly
How many hours?
Auckland to Singapore.
Okay, so it can go Auckland to Singapore in one go.
Yeah, and typically about 9.5, 10 hours.
Why did you decide to go straight to the Seahawk and not have a wider procurement process for the Chopper?
Well, the point is, we looked at the Ministry of Defence and Defence Force worked very hard to look at all the available options. And when we looked at them side by side, despite the fact that all the other options are all good options for various people, the Seahawk was by far and away the most suitable for what we have and what we need, and also the interoperability with Australia. So we've been very clear that where we can, we will buy the same as Australia unless there's a clear point why we shouldn't. Because, for instance, the replacements for the Boeings, the Airbus, that's not the same that Australia has, because we're a smaller nation, we can't afford to have much more bespoke answers to things. But in terms of Seahawk, when we looked at the numbers and the way it works with our configurations, with the frigates, but also with our other ships, this is by far the best option.
Was the trade balance with the US a factor in that consideration?
Well, it actually wasn't, because it was Defence looking at what all those options could be. But the fact is that there is more trade now, obviously, with Australia, with the US, but that's not the option we were looking at. Defence has to look to defence primarily.
Is it useful though?
Also, can I say, we made this decision on this purchase prior to the 15% tariff announcement by Donald Trump, so it's not connected.
Is it useful, however, and has this announcement been timed, for instance, with Trade Minister
No, I
Collins?
can tell you this announcement, I'm very clear. Defence has to make its announcements when these decisions are made. So, clearly we were looking early in the year, as Mr. Peters said, at various options. Seahawk was definitely coming out as the most preferred option. But this announcement, this went through Cabinet this week, and hence the announcements today. I'm very clear about this. Defence can't wait around waiting for everyone else to do their things, and ultimately, the sooner we get the decisions made, the sooner we can get ourselves in the order to actually get these helicopters.
Why do we need helicopters with an advanced precision kill weapon system? What are we intending to kill?
Well, I think it's really important that we don't send our people into these situations with our helicopters where they have no option. So I expect that they will be able to have that capability. Even our Sea Sprites, and I understand that one of the airframes we used for a Sea Sprite, one of them actually served in the Korean War, that they have missiles too, because sometimes you might have to have that, you just don't know.
The Israeli government last week said our only enemy is cats and possums. Do we have any other enemies?
Well, anybody who wants to hurt New Zealand's interests.
And who would that be?
Well, I think you'd have to think about that very clearly, Jamie.
Jamie, this is not the pacifist convention.
Yeah,
We're
no.
talking about Defence Force. You get what that means? Start being real.
And we deal with...
On the Seahawks, Minister, on the Seahawks, will we have less capability and flexibility because we're going from 7 helicopters down to 5?
Well, you could think that, except when you consider that our operability at the moment with the Sea Sprites is, I think it's 23, or is it 25%? So you're dealing with very, very old aircraft. In fact, when I spoke to one of my predecessors and asked him, how come we did this deal to buy these second-hand Australian Sea Sprites? And he said that's all the money he could get at the time. But even then they were old. So these are aircraft, as I said, one of which the airframe was used in the Korean War, not even the Vietnam War. the Korean War.
The newer aircraft will have less time out in maintenance.
Yeah, oh, I think that's true for anybody who buys a new car, having had an old car. There's less maintenance, but it's the capability that it brings.
What was the time frame for the helicopters? Was it the start of 2028 for the 757s and for the choppers?
Yes, so we're looking at that, but we're also looking at how we can plug any gaps that we might have as well. So we'll obviously be talking to. It's going to be a few years just because of the fact we are buying brand new equipment and we have to go into an order.
Lack of mechanics and engineers to keep the existing choppers in the air, so they've been down more than you would like. What's the status of that? What's the numbers of mechanics and engineers that you've got to keep these new choppers, which are much more complex, in the air?
I'll ask the expert on that.
We'll use the same people that fly, operate, maintain, support the missions for those helicopters. We'll train, we'll have that all sequenced so that there's a seamless transition from old to new.
How many you're short now of those people? Because you have been short.
For the current fleets, yeah, I think if you look across a lot of aspects of the Defence Force, whichever squadron or unit you're talking about, there's always shortages. Our attrition that we face post-COVID has finished, and now we're in the process of rebuilding. I think by the time these new helicopters come along, our workforce, our uniform workforce that maintain and operate them will be in a far better state.
Air New Zealand has a massive fleet of A320 family aircraft. Will they help maintain them, or will the Air Force within Squadron 40, will they maintain them?
It'll be a mix of both. So you have your day-to-day maintenance of these, which will be done by Air Force people on the flight lines and on the missions as they fly around. But some of that deeper maintenance will be conducted, hopefully with Air New Zealand in New Zealand. Wherever possible, we're going to try and spend our money in New Zealand on support, maintenance and equipment for both of these aircraft types.
Hang on, look. One of your elders, Mr. Harmon, wants to ask a question.
Where are you, Mr.
Show some
Harmon?
respect. Come on, Mr. Harmon, let's go.
Yes, that's right.
Say that after you heard the question.
I know I'm on board.
I don't know too much respect there, Winston.
Talking about interoperability and particularly in Anzac Force,
Yes.
why should that not be considered to be what Murray McCully warned against at the Waikato Economic Forum earlier this year, that we're in danger of subcontracting our foreign policy to Australia?
What I might just say is that Murray McCully's had his time on this, and I actually would rather work with Mr. Peters.
Now, can I just say, look, we've come down to tell you about a bright, new, responsible future.
Murray McCully.
And the first question was about some plane that was built 35 years ago, and whether there are complaints about that. Now, that's very good, but it's nothing to do with this announcement. And now you want to talk about a former Foreign Minister, right?
Quite a few for us.
And you're talking to the present one and the present Defence Minister.
Well, we have the sovereignty, and that's the point. But
Say no to Australia?
Well, of course.
Just to participate
in something that doesn't work for us, absolutely. But it is very important that we are to understand that there are many times that we work very closely with Australia. We have done since basically the First World War, and we continue to do so. They're a much larger nation, much richer than us, and with far more capability because of the fact that they are so much bigger. And it would be a very foolish thing to want to be all nice and lonely in the bottom of the South Pacific, particularly when we know that we live in a totally different environment than when Murray McCully was the Foreign Minister.
Do the concerns laid out in the NZSIS report today reinforce why we need to make these investments?
Well, I think it's a very wise question. It's really clear that we live in a very difficult time at the moment, and things that we would never have dreamt of 10 or 15 years ago are happening right now. So we need to be very aware of the fact that anyone who thinks that we live in a benign strategic environment and wants to relive their glory days is obviously wrong.
I know you like value for money for taxpayers.
I do indeed.
You do. The Trump administration in the last month announced 6 new initiatives to boost foreign arms sales. There's a new task force. Is this purchase of the Seahawks happening under that so that we can be sure that we're getting the best deal? Are we getting perhaps a discount price from the President?
I think we'll ask the Secretary of Defence for that.
There are two different initiatives here. The one that you're talking about is within the United States itself, and they're thinking about their own processes. What we are buying these helicopters under is the foreign military supply, and that's a government-to-government arrangement, which New Zealand used to buy the C-130Js and the P-8s and the simulator that arrived in Auckland last night. And what we actually do is we, as a government, negotiate with the US government around what we want and when we want it. Then the United States government negotiates with Lockheed Martin on our behalf to get the best price. And the essence of that is that the US has more weight, more bulk, and more demand, so they can drive the unit price down. So we will end up with a better price through the FMS process than we would otherwise get.
Well, you would know that as part of this, so it is about foreign arms sales, and they've drawn up a list of priority partner countries. When we've asked Defence and the MFAT, are we on that list, and this is a new list, we've been told they don't know. I would have thought that list might be an appropriate thing to get on if you wanted to buy billions of helicopters. Can you tell us if we're on that list?
Well, I have nothing to add to what was actually reported this morning from both MFAT and Defence in response to the OIA. All I would say is that we have said to the United States that we are interested in getting the helicopters as quickly as we can for the best price we can, and now that Cabinet has made this decision, we can actually start talking to the United States in real detail about what our requirements are. So it's quite early in the process in terms of engaging with the US government in a formal way to drive down cost and to increase pace.
You won't be asking if we're on that list.
There's no need to ask if we're on that list at the moment, because through the foreign military sales program we will get the same outcome, which is a lower price at a faster pace than we would do if we were acting on our own.
Can I ask you your overall thoughts, Mr Secretary, about the commitment to spend the new equipment that's being brought online and what that will do to boost morale and confidence within our defence forces?
Well, I can only echo, I think, what both ministers have, and the Prime Minister indeed has said, which is this is a defence force, it's not a gendarmerie, it needs to be equipped to be a defence force, and after many years of neglect by a variety of governments over decades, it's time to build back. Not just, by the way, for the strategic environment, which is clearly deteriorating, but also so that it can provide better humanitarian assistance and disaster relief in the Pacific. It can better support communities in New Zealand itself. It's in a parlous state and it needs to be rebuilt.
What do you think the reaction will be from the men and women who are on the front lines who are in our disputing?
Well, the Minister and the CDF have a view of that, I'm sure.
Let me say, they're delighted, but I'm sure the CDF would like to say his own, please.
There's been a palpable lift in morale by the men and women who serve New Zealand in our Defence Force, and that was ever since the announcement of the DCP. This will just further add to that, and so will a whole string of capability announcements that come in the future months and years.
Why the A321 XLR as opposed to a 737?
It's simply the range. I mean, the 321 XLR is in a class of its own. It's the longest range of all of the narrow-body aircraft, and it was an obvious and sensible choice.
Is it going to have the same layout as the 757s with the main cargo door on the main deck, so you can slide seats and stuff in?
We're keeping this aircraft off the shelf as standard as possible, and for all intents and purposes it will look, feel and smell exactly like any other airliner anywhere in the world. We can carry cargo underneath the floor, as most of those aircraft do, but we won't be cutting a hole in it and trying to make it a multi-role aircraft like the 75.
Are you confident the 757s will last till delivery in 2028?
Yeah, so the numbers of 757s around the world are decreasing. It was once a very popular aircraft and there were plenty of parts available for it, but that's one of the big issues we have now. Age-related unserviceabilities and technical glitches, but also just trying to get your hands on some of the fundamental parts that it needs. Most airlines are retiring them or have retired them from passenger service, and so their primary use now around the world is as a cargo aircraft.
Mr Peters, can I ask how often defence capability comes up when you're on the global circuit in your various meetings, and what message, now the fact that we're actually spending money and getting new gear, what message does that send to the rest of the world and our partners?
Well, we don't get outside our parameters as a Foreign Minister. If such a thing was to arise, I'd be consulting the Minister of Defence before I made any comment. And I advise that's a wise strategy when you're on a government.
Minister Collins, the teachers' strike this week, you're dropping a couple of $1 billion on this. You're not giving them a pay rise. Some people might look at this and go, hang on, what are the priorities here?
Our economic security requires us to have security, actual security. In terms of the teacher strike, I just urge everyone to get back to the bargaining table, and you cannot bargain if you're not at that table.
And if you look at if you look at the inflation over the last 7 years, and the pay rises in the teaching profession in the last 7 years, they're not behind, they're in front. And I wish some of you people would do simple mathematics and tell them that.
Collins, ask about the lease to buy arrangement.
Yes.
How does that work exactly, and what kind of advantage does New Zealand get by it?
Yes, I think we'll deal with detail. I mean, I asked those same questions, by the way. That's very good.
So it's the same as if you were buying kind of hire purchase, I suppose. It might be the closest analogy. What are the advantages for us? It's $40 million cheaper than buying the aircraft outright. Our capital, the government's capital, 54% of it is held back for 6 years, so the cost of that capital is saved. It also means that the unit price is reduced because the preferred supplier, with whom we hope to conclude contractual negotiations within the next month, buys in bulk. So we're not buying 2 aircraft, they are buying in bulk, and they are giving us a cheaper aircraft as a result. So all of these things, just on the pure government's books, the accounts, make for a better deal. The second thing is it also gives us a guaranteed slot for delivery at a time when there's huge demand for these kinds of narrow body aircraft, and so we need to get in that queue. And if we were in that queue on our own, we might be gazumped, whereas if we're in that queue through a large purchaser, we've got more guarantee, we have a guarantee of getting it on time.
With that guarantee of where we are in the queue, is it as early in the queue as we would expect to be, or is it potentially further back but guaranteed to stay?
We looked quite hard as to whether we could actually buy an aircraft ourselves and try and accelerate the delivery time. But what we found was there was no commercially available aircraft that was configured the way we wanted it because of everyone else ahead of us trying to run an airline. So in the end, we are going to get 2 aircraft at a better price, but also at a better time.
Lifetime of what's the lifetime of both aircraft we're purchasing? The expected.
Well,
does the investment cover us for 2 decades?
That's quite a hard question to answer, but partly because New Zealand runs its assets for such a long time, a la Korean War. So.
Yeah, I think it depends on the maintenance and everything else that goes with them and how they're still suitable. But if I was to make a guess on it, if I was a betting person, I might suggest probably twice as long as anyone else can run anything.
All right.
Who's the large contractor that's acquiring the Airbus?
Yeah, we're not able to say that at the moment for commercial sensitivity.
And could you explain there was reference I think to uncrewed aircraft that will go alongside the helicopters? What is that?
Yeah, you talk to me.
So that's the third tranche of the maritime helicopter capability. So first of all, we'll be getting the helicopters themselves and weapons to go with it. Then there's some infrastructure that comes in the second tranche, and then the third tranche is some of the uncrewed platforms. These would be typical. We haven't decided the actual type specifically yet, but these will be rotor-driven or typical uncrewed winged systems that you fly off the back of ships. They will supplement this aircraft, and again, that's the reason why we're not going for 8 of these. We'll only be going for 5.
For the layman, is that drones?
Yeah, effectively. Yep. Yeah.
Aerospace be considered as a company to buy drones from? SIAS Aerospace, are based in Taiwan.
I think there's quite a few people that Defence are looking at and talking to, but it would be a little early for us to say right now. But I expect that where we can buy from New Zealand, we would like to.
Will these be based in Whenuapai, or will you move them to
It's
Ohakia?
Whenuapai. The P8s are at Ohakia, but these will be at Whenuapai. and that's where the sea sprites are now.
Collins, take your point that earlier you said that this wasn't about trade deficits or tariffs, that this decision was made prior to that and it was about defence.
Well,
but do you expect this topic to be raised by the Trade Minister during his talks?
Well, I don't know because I'm not his mother and I haven't told him what to do.
As a cabinet?
Well, I don't. Well, number one, we never discuss what goes on in cabinet. Number two, as Minister Peters rightly said, and one of my own survival mechanisms is to stay in my own lane. But I think it is obvious that we are buying the best equipment that we can for our people with the money we have available to meet our needs and our interoperability requirements. So in terms of that, that will be up to the Minister for Trade, who I have to say is doing an outstanding job and doesn't need my guidance.
Just quickly on the Airbuses, there's some issues with the engines.
I think we have to finish this at some stage.
Are you concerned about the engine issues that Airbus has with its A320s?
No, the Chief of Defence Force is shaking his head at me, and the answer is no. Thank you very much, everybody. I'd be a little bit more concerned with what we've got at the moment.